Hey, spooky people, it's your best friend Kenny, and we are back with the final entries in the Ultimate Paranormal Iceberg by Reddit user ManOfNope. Thanks, ManOfNope. Before we get to the video, let's make sure that you are subscribed to this channel. Please like and share this video and comment for the algorithm. The Rain Woman is a painting by Ukrainian artist Svetlana Telets. It was created in 1996 and it gained reputation in internet folklore and urban legends as a cursed object that brings misfortune, anxiety, and paranormal activity to its owners. The story begins in Ukraine in 1996. Svetlana Telets was an artist who had recently finished art school. She claimed that for 6 months prior to the painting's creation, she felt a constant, oppressive sensation of being watched. One day, she was sitting in front of a blank canvas and she suddenly saw the image of a woman clearly in her mind. She reported she felt a compulsion to paint, describing the experience as if someone else was controlling my hand. Despite the details, she allegedly completed the main figure in just 5 hours, a very short time for this kind of painting. The painting depicts a woman with an elongated face and distorted features, wearing a large, wide-brimmed black hat, standing amidst a gloomy, rainy background. Her eyes are described as heavy, white, or droopy, giving her a sorrowful or eerie expression. After the painting was completed and put up for sale in a local art salon, it was purchased by 3 different buyers. Each one returned it shortly after, citing disturbing experiences. The first buyer was named Larissa. She was a businesswoman who lived alone. She bought the painting to hang in her bedroom. Within days, she returned it, claiming that she felt an intense presence in her apartment. She told the artist, "Please take it back. I cannot sleep. It feels like there is someone else in the apartment beside me. I even took it off the wall and hid it behind the cupboard, but I still feel her." The second buyer's name was Eugene. He was a young man who dismissed the rumors as superstition. He hung it in his living room, but returned it weeks later. He claimed the woman in the painting was haunting his dreams and that he saw her shadow walking around his house. He reportedly lost a significant amount of weight and looked visibly drained when he returned the art. The third buyer was a man who was initially drawn to the painting's look. He returned it complaining that the woman's white eyes were appearing everywhere he looked, and he felt like he was drowning in them. He also reported sudden onset headaches and unexplainable anxiety. After the 3 returns, the painting gained notoriety and hung in a salon in Venezia for years. Even visitors to the gallery complained about feeling uneasy while standing near it. Around 2007 or 2008, the painting was purchased by Sergei Skychko, a musician from the famous Soviet-Russian rock band Zemlyan. Skychko supposedly kept the painting in his office, and he initially dismissed a curse. However, later, rumors suggest that his wife demanded to get rid of it after seeing a ghostly figure in their room and noticing that the painting caused arguments between them. Today, the painting's location is unknown. Some people say it's with Scotchko, possibly in storage, and others claimed it has disappeared into a private collection or remains hidden to prevent further misfortune. The painting's unsettling because it relies on the uncanny valley. The woman is human-like, but distorted enough to trigger a natural biological revulsion or fear response. Combined with the power of suggestion, your belief that it's haunted, and the gloomy, muted color palette, it's easy to see why the painting generates feelings of dread in sensitive viewers. Heddy Frederickson's haunting refers to a famous Canadian ghost story from the 1960s involving an artist named Heddy Frederickson in Chilliwack, British Columbia. The case became a media sensation in 1966, largely because Heddy was an artist who attempted to paint the entity haunting her, resulting in a strange phenomenon where the portrait reportedly refused to stay fixed. In 1965, Heddy and her husband, Douglas Frederickson, purchased a large old manor in the corner of William Street North and Portage Avenue in Chilliwack. It was a striking, somewhat eerie building with a 3-story turret topped by a witch's hat roof. Unknown to the Fredericksons at the time of the purchase, the house had a local reputation for being haunted. Rumors included an unaliving on the property and a woman who was allegedly murdered and sealed in a chimney. Almost immediately after moving in, the family began experiencing poltergeist activity, particularly in one of the upstairs bedrooms. Drawers would open and slam shut on their own. A heavy iron bedstead was reportedly dragged across the floor. The family heard phantom footsteps pacing the floors while everyone was downstairs. Heddy also reported seeing an illuminated mist that smelled strongly of sweet perfume. Heddy began suffering from a recurring vivid nightmare of a terrified woman wearing a red dress with yellow flowers. As an artist, Heddy decided to confront her fears by painting the woman she saw in her dreams. Heddy claimed that painting the ghost was nearly impossible. She stated that every time she tried to paint the woman's face, it would have involuntarily morph into the face of a man. She would paint the woman's features. When she looked back or worked on it further, the features would appear masculine. She eventually forced herself to concentrate and complete a likeness of the woman in the red dress, but the process left her unsettled. In 1966, the local paper, the Chilliwack Progress, ran a story on the haunting. The story was picked up by the national media and even reported as far away as Japan. The publicity backfired on the family. On one Sunday alone, over 700 sightseers swarmed the property hoping to see a ghost. The crowd was so aggressive they reportedly broke the front steps of the house. Fredericksons eventually moved out. The house was sold to a new owner referred to as Mrs. X, who claimed that the activity continued. She reported that there were at least 3 ghosts in the house, including a motherly spirit who liked to sit and watch television with the family. Now, the house no longer exists. It was eventually demolished, erasing the physical location of the legend, though the story remains a staple in British Columbia folklore. The 99-door mansion, which was originally known as the Caledonia House, is a decaying colonial manor located in Nibong Tebal, Penang, Malaysia. It's widely considered one of Malaysia's most haunted locations, famous for its bizarre architecture, a high-profile unsolved murder, and legends involving black magic. The mansion was built in the mid-19th century, likely around the 1840s, with renovations in the 1910s, by the Ramsden family, a wealthy British clan that managed sugar cane and rubber plantations. The house is named for its unusual layout. It reportedly features 10 rooms, and each room has 5 to 6 doors. When combined with the doors to the balcony, dance hall, corridors, the count is said to be exactly 99. It lacks a traditional front door in the modern sense. The excessive number of doors was likely designed for ventilation in the tropical heat, allowing air to flow freely throughout each room. The dark history of the house centers on the death of John St. Maur Ramsden, the managing director of the estate. On June 8, 1948, John was walking up the mansion's grand staircase when he was shot twice in the back of the head. The murder remains unsolved to this day. At the time, theories ranged from a business rival or a jealous lover to communist guerrillas. However, the execution-style nature of the killing suggests a personal motive. Following the murder and the decline of the British Empire's presence in the region, the family eventually left, and the house fell into ruins by the 1960s. Once the jungle began to reclaim the house, the local folklore took over. The most famous urban legend claims that a 100th door appears in the mansion at exactly midnight. It's said to be a portal to the spirit world. If you walk through it, you'll be trapped in the other realm forever. Locals claim that after the house was abandoned, a boma, which is a Malay witch doctor, moved in and used the location to practice black magic. The legend says he used the confusing layout of the 99 doors to trap spirits inside the house to do his bidding. Like many colonial mansions in Malaysia, it was reportedly used by the Japanese military during World War II, leading to rumors that the grounds are haunted by the spirits of executed prisoners. The mansion is currently in a state of severe disrepair and has suffered 2 major incidents recently. In July 2020, a mysterious fire broke out, destroying roughly 70% of the wooden structure, including the floor and the roof. In March 2024, a crane belonging to a film crew collapsed onto the house, smashing through walls and causing further collapse. The mansion currently sits on private land within a palm oil plantation. It's strictly guarded, though thrill seekers often trespass to see if the 100th door will appear. The Jumping Renault of Cape Town is a bizarre urban legend and documented incident from 2004 involving a car that allegedly came to life on its own, terrified witnesses, and baffled police. The event took place in December 2004 in Somerset West, a town in the Cape Town metropolitan area of South Africa. According to reports, a Renault parked at a guest house suddenly began to exhibit poltergeist-like behavior. The event was witnessed by at least 9 people, including the car's owner, guest house visitors, and reportedly 2 police officers who had been called to the scene. The car had no keys in the ignition and the handbrake engaged, but it allegedly started its engine on its own. Witnesses claim the engine roared as if someone were gunning the accelerator. The vehicle then lurched or jumped backwards twice. It reportedly moved with enough force to hit a hibiscus tree in the yard. Witnesses insisted that there was absolutely no one inside the car. The fact that the engine revved loudly before the movement is what terrified onlookers, leading many to believe that the car was possessed or angry. Because the story garnered significant media attention in South Africa, Renault South Africa sent a technical team to investigate the vehicle. Renault concluded that a rusty starter cable was to blame. They stated that the cable had short-circuited, bypassing the ignition switch and engaging the starter motor. Since the car had been parked in reverse gear, the cranking of the starter caused the car to lurch backward. The Great Bed of Ware is one of the most famous pieces of furniture in history. It's a massive, elaborately carved oak 4-poster bed built during the Elizabethan era. It's currently on display at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. The bed was essentially a 16th century publicity stunt. It was commissioned by White Hart Inn in Hertfordshire, where was a common stopover town for travelers leaving London for Cambridge or the north. The innkeeper had the bed built to attract guests who wanted to say they had seen or slept in the Great Bed. The bed measures roughly 10 feet by 11 feet, and it's reportedly large enough to accommodate 4 couples lying side by side without touching. Because it was a public attraction in a busy inn for centuries, guests frequently carved their initials or stuck wax seals onto the wood to prove they had been there. If you look closely at the bed today, you can see centuries-old graffiti on the bedpost and headboard. The bed was such a cultural icon that William Shakespeare referenced it in Twelfth Night. The character Sir Toby Belch describes a sheet of paper as big enough for the bed of Ware, which tells us the bed was already famous just 10 years after it was built. According to local folklore, the bed's maker was a carpenter named Jonas Forsbrook, and he was so proud of his creation that he haunts anyone who dares damage it. Legend says that he would pinch or scratch guests who slept in the bed if they insulted it. In reality, the pinching was probably due to bed bugs, which is disgusting. The Basano Vase is a legendary cursed object from Italian folklore. It is a silver vase that supposedly brings death to anyone who owns it. The story is repeated as fact in paranormal circles, but it lacks verifiable historical evidence and reach, much like an urban legend. The legend begins in the 15th century in a small village near Naples, Italy. The vase was carved from silver and given anonymously to a young bride on the evening of her wedding. That night, she was found lying on the floor, murdered, clutching the vase to her chest. The vase remained in her family, passed down from generation to generation. According to the story, every single family member who took possession of it died shortly thereafter. Realizing the pattern, the surviving family hid the vase in a secret location. The vase allegedly remained hidden until 1988, when it was dug up. Inside the vase was a piece of parchment with a warning: beware, the vase brings death. Ignoring the warning, the finder sold the vase at auction for 4 million lire. This reportedly triggered a new wave of victims. The first modern buyer was a pharmacist who owned the vase for 3 months before dying suddenly. The vase was sold to a 37-year-old surgeon who died 2 months later. An archaeologist bought it for his private collection, and he died 3 months later of a mysterious infection. The family of the last victim became so desperate to get rid of it that they allegedly threw it out a window, nearly hitting a police officer. The police officer cited them for disorderly conduct, but took custody of the vase. The current location of the vase is unknown, which adds to the mystique. The story goes the police tried to donate the vase to several museums, but all of them refused to accept it because of its reputation. The police are said to have buried the vase in a lead box in an undisclosed location to prevent anyone from ever finding it ever again. Now, most believe that the Basano Vase is an urban legend. The big reason for that is a lack of names. The victims are always referred to by their professions, the surgeon, the pharmacist, rather than their names, which is a common trope in urban legends to make checking the facts impossible. Also, this is a somewhat recent urban legend from 1988, and there are no reliable newspaper archives from that year confirming this stream of deaths or even the auction. There are 2 haunted dolls named Norman that have made headlines in the paranormal community. One is a long-standing case from the United States involving a paranormal investigator, and the other is a recent story from the UK. Norman the Mattel doll is the most famous Norman in paranormal literature, and he is owned by paranormal investigator and author Stephen Lancaster. Norman is a vintage 1960s Mattel talking doll. He has a pull-string voice box and a generally creepy, wide-eyed expression. Lancaster found the doll in an antique shop in 2016. The shop owners were allegedly eager to get rid of it and sold it very cheaply. Lancaster claims that as soon as he brought the doll home, his house was suddenly infested with spiders and rats, which stopped when the doll was removed. He claimed to have captured video footage of the doll's arm moving on its own and its eyes blinking, even though the doll was not capable of doing this. Despite the voice box being broken, witnesses claim to have heard the doll speak in a voice that does not match its original recording. Norman is currently kept in a sealed glass container, often covered within Lancaster's home. The owner refuses to sell him, believing it would be irresponsible to pass the curse to somebody else. The doll is the subject of the book Norman, the Doll That Needed to Be Locked Away, and was featured in an episode of the TV show A Haunting. There is a Norman the eBay doll that went viral recently and is owned by a woman named Candace Collins in Cornwall, England. This Norman is a vintage doll with blonde hair wearing a blue striped shirt. He looks more like a traditional toddler doll than the Mattel version. Collins bought the doll on eBay for £200. The previous owner, Christian Hawksworth, claims his life fell apart after buying the doll for just £3 at an antique fair. He claims he suffered a burst appendix, brake failure in his car, and was shot. Collins claimed the doll leaves scratches and unexplained bruises on her body. She claims to have heard the doll talking to her 3-year-old son at night and says the boy giggles back at it. She reports that the room turns freezing cold whenever the doll is taken out of its box. To protect her family, Collins keeps the doll in a glass box surrounded by holy water, stored inside a locked outhouse in her garden. The Delhi Sapphire is a gemstone that is famous for being cursed. Although it's not a sapphire, it's a large oval-shaped amethyst. It's currently held in the Vault of Natural History Museum in London, where it is often displayed with the chilling warning letter that accompanied it. The legend begins with the Indian Mutiny of 1957. A British Bengal cavalryman named Colonel W. Ferris allegedly looted the stone from the Temple of Indra in Kanpur, India. According to the story, Ferris returned to England and immediately suffered financial ruin and declining health. When his son inherited it, he suffered a lifetime of bad luck. The most famous owner was Edward Heron Allen, a scientist, writer, and friend of Oscar Wilde, who received the stone in 1890. He claimed the stone was trebly accursed. Several specific misfortunes he blamed on the gem. He gave the stone to a friend who was a professional singer. She allegedly lost her voice forever and never sang again. Desperate to get rid of it, Heron Allen claimed he threw it into Regent's Canal in London. 3 months later, a dredger found it, sold it to a jeweler, and the jeweler returned it to him. Terrified that the stone would harm his newborn daughter, Heron Allen parked the amethyst inside 7 boxes, one inside the other. He deposited it at his bank with strict instructions that it should not be opened until 33 years after his death. How he figured that out, I have no idea. How he came up with 33 years, no idea. Inside the box, he included a warning letter that read, "The stone is trebly accursed and is stained with the blood and dishonor of everyone who has ever owned it. Whoever shall then open it shall first read out this warning and then do as he pleases with the jewel. My advice to him or her is to cast it into the sea." The story is a great story. Modern historians and curators at the Natural History Museum believe Heron Allen likely invented the curse himself. Heron Allen wrote a short story in 1921 titled The Purple Sapphire under a pseudonym. The plot of the book matches the real-life curse almost perfectly. It's believed that he fabricated the physical prop and the backstory to generate publicity for this fiction. The Lydian Hoard is a mass collection of 6th century BC gold and silver artifacts from the Kingdom of Lydia in modern-day Western Turkey. And it's famous for its scandalous modern history, which involves tomb raiding, a high-profile lawsuit against the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and a legendary curse said to destroy the lives of those who touch it. The hoard consists of over 360 artifacts dating back to the reign of King Croesus. The collection includes intricate gold jewelry, silver vessels, incense burners, and wall paintings. The most famous item is the winged seahorse brooch, a tiny but incredibly detailed golden piece that has become the center of a major theft scandal. Lydian Hoard was discovered by looters. Villagers of the Usak province of Turkey broke into Iron Age burial mounds, dynamiting some of the tombs to gain entry. They stripped the dead of their jewelry and sold the items to smugglers. The artifacts were quietly purchased by the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York for roughly $1.5 million. The museum kept the items in storage for nearly 20 years, likely to avoid questions about where they came from. In the 1980s, a Turkish journalist spotted the items on display in New York and realized they matched the looted tombs. Turkey sued the Met, proving that the museum knew the items were stolen when they bought them. In 1993, the Met was forced to return the entire hoard to Turkey. There is a local belief that the treasure carries a curse because it was stolen from the dead. Believers point to the fates of the men involved in the original looting. One looter allegedly lost 3 of his sons to violent deaths. Another was paralyzed. A third went insane and died shortly after. The final looter reportedly told legal authorities, "I have seen no good but only trouble from the treasure." Even after the treasure was returned to Turkey, the drama didn't end. In 2006, authorities discovered that the winged seahorse brooch on display at the Usak Museum was actually a fake. It turned out the museum's own director had stolen the real brooch to pay off gambling debts and replaced it with a replica. He was arrested, and the real brooch was eventually recovered in Germany and returned to Turkey, further cementing the legend that the treasure brings ruin to anyone who possesses it illegally. The Fahey family haunting is a documented case of alleged paranormal activity that took place in Galway, Ireland in 1996 and 1997. It's one of Ireland's most famous hauntings because it occurred in a standard house in a busy neighborhood rather than an ancient castle or a manor. The haunting centered on the home of Jackie and Esther Fahey, who lived with their adult children and their newborn granddaughter, Sarah Louise. The trouble reportedly began shortly after the baby was born. One of the most bizarre recurring events involved the family cleaning a room only to return minutes later to find the floor covered in crushed eggshells, despite no eggs being kept in that part of the house. Maybe the ghost likes omelets. The family and visiting neighbors would hear the distinct sound of a newborn baby crying from an empty bedroom, even while the real baby, Sarah Louise, was asleep in her mother's arms in the living room. As the activity escalated, family members reported being physically pushed, having stones thrown at them from inside the house, and seeing furniture like heavy kitchen chairs stacked up on tables. On one occasion, the family allegedly found the infant Sarah Louise unharmed but sitting up in her crib with her toys arranged in a perfect circle around her, something that a baby of her age couldn't do. The family became pariahs in their own neighborhood as the activity grew louder and more violent. They eventually sought the help of the Catholic Church. A bishop visited the home to say mass. Witnesses claimed that during the prayers, the phantom baby crying was heard by everyone in the room, baffling the clergy. Desperate for a solution, the family contacted Irish psychic Sandra Ramdani. She claimed the haunting was caused by place memory. She stated the house was built on the site of an old farmhouse where in the early 1900s, a woman had secretly given birth to a child and unalived it. The psychic performed a cleansing ritual to release the spirit of the deceased infant. According to the Fahey family, the activity stopped immediately after this intervention. The case was highly publicized in Irish newspapers at the time. It was later detailed in the book Cry from Beyond by Jonathan Fahey, which accounts the family's experience during those months. The Becker family haunting is a famous paranormal case from the early 1970s involving Edwin and Marcia Becker. It's significant because it resulted in the first televised exorcism in American history, which aired on NBC in 1971. In 1970, a young couple, Edwin and Marcia Becker, purchased a 2-flat building on the northwest side of Chicago. They planned to live in the upstairs unit and rent out the downstairs apartment to cover the mortgage. The house had been built and occupied by the Vidier family. When the Beckers bought it, an elderly and mentally unstable member of the family, Mira Vidier, was still living there. She reportedly cursed the Beckers for buying her family home before being forced to move out. Beckers later learned the house had a dark history. Mira's brother, Ben, had allegedly died in the upstairs bathtub, and Ben's wife was rumored to have self-unalived in the basement after suffering years of abuse. After immediately moving in, the Beckers and their tenants began experiencing aggressive paranormal activity. Objects would fly off shelves, cabinet doors would violently slam open and close, the telephone would repeatedly fly off its hook. The activity seemed to target the tenants in the downstairs apartment aggressively. One tenant claimed his daughter was communicating with an invisible friend. Marcia Becker reported being physically assaulted by an unseen force while in the bathtub, the same place where Ben Vidira had died. Witnesses reported seeing a mist-like form and hearing the sounds of a couple arguing violently, believed to be the residual echoes of Ben and his wife. Desperate for help, the Beckers contacted a psychic named Joseph DeLuise and an exorcist, the Reverend William Durrell Davis. To document the event, NBC News Chicago sent a crew led by reporter Carol Simpson. During the exorcism, the crew captured strange audio anomalies and erratic behavior from the compasses they brought. Rather than clearing the house, the exorcism allegedly made the activity much worse. The entity became more violent, and the Beckers felt that the ritual only angered the spirits. The Beckers eventually realized they couldn't stay. They fled the home and sold it for a significant financial loss just to be rid of it. Edwin Becker later wrote a book about his experiences titled True Haunting. Katja the Doll is a lesser-known haunted doll legend that is often cited in internet horror communities and those top 10 paranormal lists you see on TikTok. Katja's story isn't like Robert the Doll or Annabelle, which are dolls that you could go see in museums. Katja's story sounds a lot like a creepypasta, there really isn't any physical evidence that this doll actually exists. The story is allegedly set in Russia during the era of the Tsars, typically stated to be about 1730. The legend says the doll was created by a mistress or concubine of the Tsar. She was pregnant and desperate to give birth to a son to secure her position. Instead, she gave birth to a baby girl who was reportedly deformed. According to the story, the baby was burned immediately after birth due to her appearance. Overcome with grief, the mother collected the ashes of her burned child and mixed them with porcelain and ceramic clay. She then sculpted a doll from the mixture to replace her lost baby. Because the doll is literally made from the remains of a murdered infant, it is said to be a vessel for the child's angry spirit. The stories surrounding Katja are similar to other haunted doll legends, but focus on the visual aspect. The most common claim is if you stare into the doll's eyes for more than 20 seconds, she will blink at you. It's said that looking at the doll brings severe bad luck or illness. In retellings of this legend, the doll usually is described as being kept under a thick cloth or in a sealed box to prevent anyone from accidentally making eye contact with it. But there's no verifiable historical evidence that this specific doll exists or that the specific events involving the Tsar's mistress occurred. The story gained popularity through modern internet culture, usually those creepy top 10 creepy stories that you see on TikTok and YouTube. It's an urban legend, a story that feels real but is likely just a piece of fiction. The Blindfolded Doll of Hougang is a viral urban legend originating from Singapore in 2014. It centers on a creepy possessed doll discovered by the side of a busy road, which sparked panic and speculation across social media. In June 2014, a ragged doll was found leaning against a tree in the residential town of Hougang, Singapore. The doll appeared to be a vintage-style toy wearing a lace dress, but its most disturbing feature was a piece of cloth tied tightly around its eyes as a blindfold. The blindfold had the Arabic phrase meaning "in the name of Allah" written on it. Locals and people from the internet have speculated that the blindfold was a binding spell used to trap an evil spirit inside the doll. The belief was that the doll had been possessed and was cast out by its former owner, who blindfolded it to prevent the spirit from finding its way back home. A rumor spread that if anyone were to remove the blindfold, the curse would be broken, unleashing the spirit to follow the new victim home. As photos of the doll circulated online, several disturbing claims emerged. The doll is said to move on its own when left alone in a room, often turning its head to face different directions. Some claim the doll could be heard speaking in an adult female voice. On the same day that the doll was discovered, 2 people died in the area. While likely a coincidence, superstitious locals were quick to link these events to the evil released by the doll. The doll was eventually identified as a creation by an American artist named Christy Bastet of Christy Creepy Dolls, who specializes in making horror-themed dolls. Christy confirmed that she made the doll and sold it to a buyer in Singapore, but denied creating the blindfold or the Bismillah writing. She stated that she had nothing to do with the viral story of the placement of the doll under the tree. Shortly after the photos went viral, the doll disappeared from the tree. It's unknown if it was thrown away by cleaners, taken by a collector, or if the original owner retrieved it. Novia is a painting by the celebrated Filipino artist Juan Luna. It's aesthetically beautiful, and it's infamous for carrying a deadly curse stemming from the artist's violent personal life. The woman in the portrait is widely believed to be Paz Pardo de Tavera, Juan Luna's wife. In 1892, while living in Paris, Luna accused Paz of having an affair. In a fit of jealous rage, he shot and killed both Paz and her mother and wounded her brother. Legend states that because Luna was working on this specific portrait during the time of his jealousy and rage, the painting absorbed the dark energy of the crime, or even the spirit of Paz herself. The painting gained its reputation because nearly every person who privately owned it allegedly suffered terrible misfortune, financial ruin, or even death. The first owner, a businessman, went bankrupt shortly after bringing the painting home. A subsequent owner died in a tragic car accident. Tony Nazareno suffered sudden health problems and died after acquiring the piece. To end the cycle of tragedy, the painting was eventually donated to the National Museum of the Philippines. However, the curse reportedly flared up one last time. During the official unveiling ceremony, the spotlight shining directly on the painting suddenly exploded, terrifying the guests while all other lights in the room remained perfectly functional. It currently hangs in the National Museum in Manila, where it is safe for the public to view, presumably because the curse is dormant so long as no single person tries to own it. Arshile Gorky's paintings. Arshile Gorky is an abstract expressionist painter, and the legend is their artwork is cursed, bringing destruction and misfortune to those who possess it. The legend is fueled by the artist's tragic life and a bizarre series of disasters that followed his work even after his death. The belief that the paintings are haunted stems from the immense trauma Gorky poured to them. Gorky was a survivor of the Armenian genocide, meaning his mother died of starvation in his arms. In 1946 alone, his studio caught fire, destroying a huge portion of his life's work. Shortly after, he was diagnosed with cancer, and then his neck was broken in a car accident, paralyzing his painting art. After his wife left him in 1948, he self-unalived. Paranormal enthusiasts believe his intense suffering attached a dark energy to his remaining creations. The most famous aspect of the legend is that the universe seems determined to destroy Gorky's work, often taking innocent lives in the process. On March 1st, 1962, American Airlines Flight 1 crashed shortly after takeoff in New York, killing all 95 people on board. The cargo reportedly contained 15 of Gorky's paintings and drawings en route to an exhibition in Los Angeles. The artwork was completely destroyed. Those who believe that the paintings are haunted often cite specific poltergeist-like activity around the artwork. There are reports of a black-haired ghost in a blue overcoat appearing near the paintings in galleries or homes. Owners and curators have reported the paintings falling off walls for no reason or being found face down on the floor as if knocked over. Rudolph Valentino's ring is a Hollywood urban legend, and it refers to a silver ring set with a semi-precious stone, usually described as a tiger's eye, that allegedly brought death or ruin to almost everyone who owned or wore it. In the early 1920s, silent film superstar Rudolph Valentino purchased the ring from a jeweler in San Francisco. According to the legend, the shopkeeper warned Valentino that the ring was a jinx or curse, but Valentino bought it anyway. Valentino wore the ring in his next film, The Young Raja, which became a critical and commercial flop. He put the ring away for years, only bringing it out again for his final film, The Son of the Sheik. Shortly after filming, he collapsed in New York and died at the age of 31. After Valentino's death, the ring passed through a series of owners, leaving a trail of bizarre tragedies that fueled the legend. Valentino's lover and fellow film star, Paula Negri, requested the ring as a keepsake. Shortly after receiving it, she fell ill, and her film career went into permanent decline. Russ Columbo was a singer and actor known as Radio's Valentino for his resemblance to the late star. Negri reportedly gave him the ring. Shortly after, Columbo was killed in a freak accident when an antique dueling pistol discharged, shooting him in the eye. The ring's current whereabouts are unknown. Some believe it's in a private collection somewhere or a vault, while others believe it's just been lost. The Golden Eagle is a notorious cursed car that has been called the most evil car in America. It's a 1964 Dodge 330 limited edition. Legend says that the Golden Eagle is the real-life inspiration behind Stephen King's Christine, although this claim is debated. The car began its life as a police cruiser for the Old Orchard Beach Police Department in Maine. According to the legend, 3 different police officers were assigned to drive the car. All 3 allegedly went home and killed their entire families before self-unaliving. Unnerved by the violence associated with the vehicle, the police department sold it. It eventually came into the possession of the Allen family, specifically Wendy Allen, who remains its current owner. The car is rumored to be responsible for 14 to 32 deaths. The curse specifically targets those who attempt to harm or vandalize the car, while leaving the owner, Wendy Allen, unharmed. Throughout the 1980s and 90s, various people vandalized the vehicle. Legend claims these vandals died in freak accidents shortly thereafter, including being decapitated by an 18-wheeler or struck by lightning. While this is a good story and an online urban legend, many of the deaths are undocumented in official police reports, and the curse is probably a myth cultivated by the owner or local folklore. The Xuxa doll legend is a famous urban legend from Brazil, sparking a nationwide satanic panic in the late 1980s. The doll was a mass-produced toy made in the likeness of Xuxa Meneghel, a popular children's TV host often called the Queen of the Little Ones. While she was an idol to millions of children, a dark rumor circulated that she had made a pact with the devil to achieve her fame, and that this evil extended to her merchandise. Sounds like Barney, right? The legend centers on a specific incident in the city of Sorocaba, Sao Paulo in 1989. A poor mother reportedly bought the expensive doll for her daughter's birthday. The story claims that during the night, the doll came to life. The mother found her daughter dead the next morning, covered in scratches and strangle marks. The doll was found sitting across the room with blood on its hands. This urban legend caused real-world chaos. rumors spread that the specific killer doll had been captured and chained upside the Metropolitan Cathedral of Our Lady of the Bridge in Sorocaba because it was too evil to be destroyed. On November 9th, 1989, a massive crowd actually gathered at the cathedral demanding to see the demon doll. The situation became so intense that the church leadership had to close the doors and issue official statements to the press and police denying they were harboring the possessed toy. The portrait of Henrietta Nelson is a classic English ghost story. The portrait was painted by William Johnson around 1780, and it depicts Henrietta Nelson, a woman who lived at Yaxley Hall in Suffolk, England. Henrietta Nelson was a resident of Yaxley Hall who met a tragic end when she fell down a flight of stairs and died at the age of 82. Before she died, she gave strict instructions that she was to be buried in a mausoleum on the grounds of her beloved estate rather than in the local churchyard. Her wish was initially granted. Years later, new owners bought Yaxley Hall. Finding the mausoleum inconvenient, they demolished it and had Henrietta's remains moved to the village church. Legend states that this act of disrespect caused her spirit to become restless, forever trying to return to her home. Because her physical remains were moved against her will, her spirit reportedly attached itself to her portrait to stay connected to the living world. The legend claims that wherever the painting goes, Henrietta's ghost follows. When the painting was moved to a new location, the Banningham Rectory, the owner, Brian Hall, reported seeing a pale figure wearing the exact same blue dress and wide-brimmed bonnet from the painting walking the grounds. Viewers have reported that Henrietta's face in the painting sometimes seems to change shape or expression, looking very much alive. In a strange twist, the painting was stolen during a robbery at Banningham Rectory. The owner noted that the house felt strangely empty afterwards, as if the spirit had left with the canvas. The painting was eventually recovered, and presumably the ghost also returned. The Henry Graves Supercomplication is a famous pocket watch that holds the title of the Holy Grail of watches. The timepiece is one of the most complex mechanical objects ever made, yet it is surrounded by a legend that it brings sadness and death to those who possess it. The watch was born from a legendary ego battle between two American tycoons in the early 20th century, banker Henry Graves Jr. and automobile manufacturer James Ward Packard. The two men competed to see who could commission the most complicated watch in the world from Swiss watchmaker Patek Philippe. Graves won the contest in 1933 when he received the Supercomplication. It had 24 distinct functions or complications, including a celestial map of the New York sky as seen from Graves' apartment. It cost him approximately $15,000, which is approximately $300,000 today, but its true cost may have been much higher. Legend says that as soon as Graves received the watch, his life began to fall apart, leaving him to believe the object was cursed. 7 months after he got the watch, his best friend died. Shortly after that, his son George was killed in a car crash. It's rumored that Graves once said, "This thing brings nothing but bad luck," and seriously considered throwing the $15,000 masterpiece into a lake to end the suffering. A strange part of the legend occurred in 2014. Sheikh Saud bin Mohammed Al Thani of Qatar bought the watch for a record-breaking $11 million. After buying the watch, the Sheikh's life spiraled. He was hit with lawsuits, accused of defaulting on payments to auction houses, and had his assets frozen. Desperate to cover his debts, he was forced to put the watch back on auction in November 2014. 2 days before the auction, the Sheikh was found dead in his London home at the age of 48. The watch sold 48 hours later for $24 million. A lot of people say that these are just coincidences and that the timing of the Sheikh's death right before he could sell the watch that ruined him cemented the legend of the Graves curse. Lee Sober Shapiro's summoning experiment. This is a urban legend that was popularized by the show Ghost Adventures. It's about a woman whose dangerous occult experiments allegedly led to her sudden death. Lee Sober Shapiro was a reclusive researcher who built complex machines she called anapathic chambers or wells. These devices use specific frequencies or radii to supposedly open portals to other dimensions or summon extraterrestrial demonic entities. The legend claims that during an intense summoning session, something went wrong. Shapiro was found dead the next morning amongst her machines. The evidence associated with the story is a series of Polaroid photos found at the scene, taken progressively throughout the night of her death. As the night went on, the photos allegedly show her physical appearance deteriorating rapidly, looking sick, aged, or terrified, as if life was being drained out of her. The final photo was found mysteriously sliced in half. Part of the mystery is that there is almost no record of Lee Sober Shapiro existing outside of this specific legend and the Ghost Adventures Museum. The story goes that her wealthy family was so ashamed of her occult obsession that they scrubbed her history and buried her research, leaving only the haunted artifacts behind. The A3 Burfam ghost crash is a well-documented ghost story in British history. It involves official police records and multiple independent witnesses. On the night of December 11th, 2002, police in Surrey, England received multiple panic calls from motorists reporting a car losing control. Witnesses saw a vehicle with its headlights blazing veer off the A3 highway and crash into a ditch near Burfam. Police arrived quickly but found no sign of a crash, no skid marks, no broken fence, and no vehicle. Confused, they continued searching the undergrowth. An officer eventually found a car in a ditch deep in the bushes. However, the car was covered in vines and its battery was dead. Inside were the skeletal remains of the man. The car had not crashed that night. Forensics evidence revealed it had crashed 5 months earlier in July 2002. The driver was identified as Christopher Brian Chandler, a man who had been missing since that summer. The calls that night saved Chandler from remaining a permanent missing person, but police could never explain what the motorist saw. The witnesses reported blazing headlights and a fresh crash, yet the actual car had been dead and buried in the bushes for nearly half a year. The theory is that the motorist witnessed a ghostly replay of the fatal accident from the months prior. And that is the end of the ultimate paranormal iceberg chart by Reddit user ManOfNope. Thanks, ManOfNope. It's been fun. I hope you enjoyed this series. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel, The Spooky Lawyer. Make sure that you like, share, and comment on this video for the algorithm. Follow me on Blue Sky, Twitter, and TikTok. My username is The Spooky Lawyer. If there is a disturbing story you would like me to cover, leave a comment and tell me about it, or send me an email. My email address is thespookylawyer@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a link in the description of this video to buy me a coffee, so buy me a coffee. Or you can become a member of this channel. For the $1.99 tier, you can get access to exclusive content, including exclusive videos, as well as get access to my videos before they go public. I appreciate you considering this. You also support me by continuing to like, comment, share, and watch my videos. And I do appreciate that you watch my videos. And please stay spooky.